Hello, everybody. I am Michael Curtis, the Director of Product Development for Dungeon Crawl Classics here at Goodman Games. And this is Maw of Mike for YouTube, which is going to be the first in a series of short videos intended to introduce you to the fantastic role-playing game that is Dungeon Crawl Classics. Each of these videos is going to dive into a different aspect of the game and is intended to educate, entertain, and hopefully make you interested in trying out Dungeon Crawl Classics. So what is DCC RPG? The Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game is a fantasy game which is inspired by the same sword and sorcery stories that D&D and other fantasy games draw upon. So these are the stories of Conan the Barbarian, Elric, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. This are the works of H.P. Lovecraft, Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Jack Vance's The Dying Earth stories, John Carter Mars. All these and others have laid the foundations for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Chances are that if you've played another fantasy RPG, a lot of what Dungeon Crawl Classics is already going to be familiar to you. If you know what a DC is, in the sense of what a difficulty class, and you know how to roll a 20-sided die, you already know the basics pretty much of DCC. So you're not you already know more than you think you know. So in Dungeon Crawl Classics, for example, you'll find sword swinging warriors, you're going to find spell casting wizards, you're going to find cunning thieves, weird eldritch elves, lucky halflings, pious clerics, and iron willed dwarves doing the stuff that fantasy adventurers have done since the dawn of the dawn of the genre. They're going to be searching for treasure, trying to find magic items, trying to save the world against evil, otherwise engaging in all the core activities that you probably already know and have done in other fantasy role-playing games. However, there are differences. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having our very own Dungeon Crawl Classics RPG. DCC, for example, for one thing, it strives on speed of play, which matches the tone of the very same stories that inspired it. You don't. This extends to all aspects of the game. For example, you don't have to worry about picking skills. You don't have to worry about choosing the right subclass. What feat am I going to get? All of this coolness is already baked into the character classes. So that lets you not worry about all the bookkeeping and just concentrate on having fun around the table. And as a result, because of its much simpler, streamlined way of running the mechanics and gameplay, you're going to find things like a fight that might take you 2 hours in another fantasy RPG might take you 20 minutes in DCC. And that's without losing any of the drama, any of the excitement, any of the danger that you might get in that 2 hour session. You just hit the table running and get the dice rolling, get the fun going. So in that sense, that's one of the core designs about DCC, and it's going to be to get you the max amount of fun because we don't have time these days. If we all had time, we'd all be playing role-playing games all the time. But unfortunately, real life calls, and heck, it's more fun to pack more fun in 4 hours than it is to keep rolling dice and checking this book and making sure I have the right feat whatsoever. Dungeon Crawl Classics also embraces emergent gameplay. Now, while there's still a game master, which we call the judge in DCC, Dungeon Crawl Classics leans into the randomness factor, which you're going to find in a lot of games, especially role-playing games. For example, there are critical hit tables when you roll a natural 20 to hit a foe, rather than just do double damage. There's a number of charts depending on what level you are and what your class is. Warriors, for example, are much more dangerous in combat, say, than wizards are. But you just don't always just do improved damage. You might lop off a limb, or in some cases kill an enemy outright. On the flip side of the coin, there's also fumble tables. If things go against you, you might drop a weapon, or you might find yourself bound up in your own armor because you didn't take care of it, or other stuff, which makes for an interesting game playing experience. Spell casting, anytime you cast a spell, each spell has its own table, and so you might get anything from a magic missile, which does 1 point of damage, which we call the tragic missile, to turn into Uzi the living machine gun and just blow away all those kobolds with 20 magic missiles that are spraying across the table. So speaking of kobolds, even the monsters itself in DCC tend to be, unique and unexpected. There are tables so that no two goblins, no two kobolds are exactly alike. They might be, they might be different in appearance or have different powers and stuff. So kind of, you never know what to expect in DCC, and that's what makes a lot of it fun. So because of all this randomness factors, the players and often the judge may not, they are experiencing the game as you tell it around the table. It's not because the game master has this elegant plan that's going to take you from level 1 to level 20. It's actually the game goes as you play. In some campaigns, for example, a spell might go off that blankets blankets the night, gets rid of all the stars in the sky for 100 years. You don't find that in other fantasy role-playing games. And so, the player's actions have now changed the campaign world on a grand scale. So there's a lot of this excitement comes about. Okay, what's going to happen next? And that applies for the judge too. I mean, the judge has their game plan and just figure out what's going on. It happens in every role-playing game, but especially so in DCC. Sometimes things just come out of nowhere. This kind of the fact that we rely on emergent gameplay, and the fact that we don't DCC is more about actual playing around the table. One of the things that we do about that is we kind of focus on getting to the good stuff fast. For example, in DCC, player characters, the classes cap out at level 10. Which might seem a little low for if you're coming from a fantasy role playing game that's level based. It goes much higher. 20 seems to be, for example, the standard in Pathfinder or D&D. Just because you make it to level 10 doesn't make you any less effective. DCC characters tend to be twice as strong as their other counterparts in fantasy role playing games, which means that you can get right to the cool stuff, right out the gate. You won't find a first level DCC adventure that has you killing rats in the basement of the bakery, to gain those XP to make second level. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, a first level character might find themselves whisked away to the court of chaos to be part of this, multiversal battle against the forces of law. You generally don't find that in other fantasy role playing games. But because the characters are resilient and all the coolness is baked in, we can do that, right off the bat and get you going, leaving out the dull bits and getting again to that fun that's around the table. But DCC also has other fantasy role-playing games. It is concise, and there is just one book that you will ever need to buy: the Dungeon Crawl Classics rulebook. It's your player's handbook, your Dungeon Master Guide, your Monster Manual, all rolled into one. That's all you need. You don't have to worry about when the next book is going to release or anything else. So that's all you need to play a game, except maybe some dice. And that's probably the last important thing you need to know about Dungeon Crawl Classics. It uses what we call funky dice. Well, I'll get into those more in a future video. But for now, what you need to know is that you might find yourself rolling, say, a D14 or a D7 or even a D30 sometimes when playing Dungeon Crawl Classics. And now, while we encourage you to buy these funky, weird, odd dice, we're gamers after all, we love our dice, but you can play DCC with your standard set of 7 dice that you have for your D&D, your Pathfinder game. You don't have to go out and buy everything. You already have everything you need to play. Just pick up the rule book. So that's basically what you need to know going in DCC. Classic sword and sorcery, stories you already know, mechanics you're already probably familiar with. Know that it's a fast game. It embraces randomness. It embraces emergent gameplay. It is designed to be a fun, quick experience that is not worried about over much on bookkeeping, more about rolling the dice, seeing what happens next, and having that same effervescent, that same wonderful experience you had the first time you played a role-playing game, even if it's your 101st time playing something like Dungeon Crawl Classics. All right, so that's it. I'll be back soon with another video where we'll talk about the core mechanic of DCC and a little bit more about those funky dice. So until then, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.